Okay, tell us who you are, what you do, and who you help.
Hey Laurie, firstly, thank you for having me on. I'm really excited to chat to you and share about networking and all the good things. So I'm Tam Dillon, and I'm a mentor for healing arts practitioners. And the main thing I really help them do is to bridge that gap between the sacredness of the work that they do and those everyday practicalities of life, running a business, running a home, being a parent, being a partner, being a friend. You're kind of showing up in day-to-day life, paying your bills. So I help them bridge that gap between those two things to help them build sustainable, ethical, and long-term practices for themselves. Yeah.
That's that's quite an interesting area to be in. So, how did you get into doing that?
So the mentoring side is a fairly new pivot for me. I've been a professional practitioner for well over 20 years. I've I've failed, I've succeeded, I've bumped my head, I've seen all the things, I've done all the things. And the one thing that I've noticed over my years of being a professional practitioner is that my predominant client base was always other practitioners. Whether it was when I was doing professional readings, I had other practitioners coming to me to seek advice. How do I get my practice going? Can you explain my gift to me? I think I'm gifted, but I don't know what or how to do anything with it. When I did energy work, again, practitioners, dominant people coming through. And when I shifted towards doing more coaching, self development work, again, the practitioners kept coming through my door. And when I made the pivot was probably about midway through last year. It was that realization dawned on me. You got to ask the question in business sometimes, who is my niche? For me, I was doing self-development coaching, and I was like, well, whoever wants to do self-development is my niche. And ancestors were like, no, you're not supposed to work with everybody. You're supposed to work with those who work with everybody else. When I really took that look back in um, who had I been working with most, who naturally kept coming to me, and at practitioners, this came up so strong. So the mentoring piece is actually quite a new pivot for me. That was probably about mid last year where I moved towards being a mentor just for practitioners. And I've got to say, it shot the door wide open for me in my business and connecting with a lot more practitioners as well. It's been quite amazing to witness that shift for me.
Yeah, that's that's quite a story of how you got into doing what you do. So, how would you say your approach to helping spiritual practitioners is different than others in your field?
Oh, at my years of experience. So I see a lot of coaches coming into the spiritual space, a lot of business coaches, let me get your business practice, to a six figure, let me make you an instant overnight success. But they've never stepped foot on a spiritual path. They don't have a spiritual practice for themselves. They've never worked with a spiritual modality before, whereas I've walked that path. I've been there, I've done it. As I said earlier, I've had the wins, the losses, I've bumped my head, I've seen what works, what doesn't work. And I've also done that across multiple countries. I'm originally from South Africa, and that's where I started my work. I've also lived in Southeast Asia for a few years. So I've had exposure to the different cultures there as well as the expat community. And then moving to the US again, different culture, different countries. So I've done this work in multiple different places. So not only do I speak to the lived experience of another practitioner, but I can also speak to their cultural background and for them and their clients that they're working with and their cultural background. How do you relate to different types of clients that come from different backgrounds, different belief systems, different cultures, different societies? So for me, the personal experience is one of the things that really sets me apart from most of the other coaches and mentors that are out there because I've been there and I've done it.
That's quite a journey, and it does make you stand out. So, how have you changed your networking strategy over time from when you were just starting until now?
Ooh, so I come from a corporate background which is one of the added advantages of having me as a mentor is that I have worked in business. I know how business works. And when I worked in sales and marketing, obviously networking is a huge component to that side of business. And the networking there is very on the go. You've got to be closing, you've got to be making the deals, you've got to be meeting the people and shaking the hands. And it's got a very, oh, it's almost like an aggressive feel to it. It's very, very kind of yang heavy. And sure, that works in a corporate environment, but for me, shifting into working inside spiritual spaces, that strategy doesn't work. We operate more from a yin, kind of energy flow, that softer, a little bit more receptive, more observant. And we work at a slower pace. It's not so, get up and go and close the deal. It's, hey, let me get up and meet this person. Who are you? What are you all about? So it's been more human connection in my networking strategy, like getting to know a person. When I do um, online networking, I do coffee chats with different practitioners because I want to know the person behind the screen. I want to know the people that are out there and I want to know them on their human level. What are they all about? What makes them want to get up in the morning and be excited about life? Not how can I sell to this person? What can I sell to this person? How can I make this person a client? So very much the strategy for me is building that human connection because it's something that's very sorely lacking in the world today is that connection between people in this day and age, especially in business. We're all kind of rushing to the networking events to make the sales and find the clients and build the pipelines, and we're missing that human element. So for me, that has been one of the biggest shifts because networking inside the corporate environment and networking in that manner is exhausting. It takes a lot out of you. But when you're going there to have that human experience, the connection is a lot deeper. You build the trust a lot faster. People buy from people that they trust, not someone who knows how to sell. You can sell ice to Eskimos all day, but can I trust you? Are you human? Have you got that human connection and can you meet me where I am? So that's been the biggest shift in how I network now.
Yeah, and that definitely makes sense that people would have different sales methodologies also depending on what is being sold.
Mm,
And I think with some of this personal development and spiritual development and stuff, it makes sense to have like getting to know somebody more versus you're just selling a product and it just has to work and that's it.
absolutely, absolutely. Because I mean, spirituality is you've got to have a lot more trust there. If you're going to work in spiritual spaces, you're going to have people coming to you with deep vulnerabilities. They're looking for guidance, they're looking for knowledge, they're looking for healing or, for some kind of a direction in life. And if you're coming in guns blazing and being all, buy my stuff, buy my quick fix program, they're gonna turn and hot footed in the other direction. They're not gonna want to do anything with you. So we've got to be more approachable and more human because it is a human connection that you do when you work within the healing spaces. Mm.
Definitely. What would you say are the best ways to get the most out of networking events?
Or go to the right ones. Definitely attend the right networking events for you. So there's an abundance of networking opportunities in person, online, and we when we go into business for ourselves and we want to be successful, we want to pay our rent and do the whole thing. We tend to throw everything that we can at all the walls to see what's going to stick. So we rush out to all the networking opportunities and all the networking events. And when we're not showing up in the right spaces and in the right way, we're going to exhaust ourselves. So, conserve your energy for the right type of networking environments. If you're working inside spiritual spaces, then network inside spiritual spaces. There's a really great one that you and I both know of, which is the Night Owl Networking. That's a wonderful networking space. I know you also host networking events. That's a wonderful networking space, and it's the right type of space for me as a mentor for practitioners to show up in that space. But for me to go and show up in a space that's very heavy corporate and lots of business owners and people selling all sorts of products and stuff, the likelihood of me finding anything of use there is very limited. So you've got to network in the right places and understand, where is your client base? Where are the people that you want to network with? Where are they showing up? And look for those opportunities.
I think that's a good tip for anybody because it's not just networking everywhere because you have limited time on your calendar. And the more networking events I found out about, I'm like, I can't go to every single networking event. Like, that wouldn't even make sense. And,
Mm-mm.
I had to think about, okay, what makes sense for where I am at now in my business and, who I'm looking for and all of those things. But there's a certain, I think, especially when you're just starting, of trial and error as well. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you're new in business and you're new to networking, sometimes you're going to get it right, sometimes you're going to get it wrong because you don't know what you don't know, and until you're actually out there testing out the waters, you're not going to know. So absolutely, yeah, that aspect of trial and error is definitely a factor in it. Hmm.
would you say you're more introverted or extroverted, and how does that affect the choices you make about networking?
I'm an extroverted introvert. I kind of sit in the middle there. I mean, I love my alone time. I love my downtime. I love my me time, and that makes me very introverted and very hermit-like. Um, but I also love to engage with people. I love learning about new people and who they are, what they're all about. And if I'm at a networking event, the extrovert comes out here, and it's not loud or let's make friends with everybody and let's get to know everybody. It's extroverted in a balanced way where it's open enough to build connections with people that I've never met before, without being that aggressive kind of corporate environment that I spoke about earlier. So it's for me, it's kind of finding that balance between not being reserved and shut off and like, this is terrifying to go and talk to these people. I'm too introverted for this. I've got that healthy balance of a little bit of extroversion where I'm comfortable to go and strike up a conversation with a complete stranger, find some kind of commonality between them. And you're not going to know what that commonality is until you approach them and say, "Hi, my name's Tam. How's the event going for you?" So you've got to have a little bit of extrovertness to you in inside networking, and it's a scary thing for a lot of people. I mean, I've been in many networking events, and I still get a little bit of anxiety before. I'm like, oh, who's going to be there, and what are they going to think of me? And then I tell myself to stop being ridiculous. You'll be fine. You've done this 100 times. You know what you're doing. Um, but I think that's just the human aspect, where we're always a little bit nervous and unsure because of we don't know what's going to happen or come out of the thing. So yeah, I kind of sit in the middle of being that introverted extrovert.
Yeah, I consider myself more of an ambivert as well. Like
Mm.
and I like that you pointed out, like the initiating the connections, because I think sometimes that's hard for people to do,
Yes.
especially if they're more introverted. Getting comfortable being uncomfortable is part of the entrepreneur skill set. What helped you get past that when things felt uncomfortable?
Oh, discomfort is where the growth happens. Um, I mean, life's always going to have a level of discomfort to it. I've got a really great mentor that I've had for many years, and she uses the term being comfortably low. So when you're unhappy with life and life's not going anywhere for you, but you're comfortable in that space, like you're not happy about it, but this is the comfort zone. You're not growing, you're not experiencing, you're existing, you're not living your life. So for me, that's getting out of my own way, getting out of my comfort zones. Life is incredible when you do that. Your opportunities will open up to you, deeper connections will happen for you, and growth. You really grow into yourself when you step out of that. I've got to stick inside my comfort zone. And there's an element of wanting to stay safe. You know, rather the devils you know than the devils you don't. So there is a little bit of aspect of, if I stay where I am, and much as I don't like it, it's what I know and it's safe. And anything outside of that, I don't know, so it might not be safe. But growth is so much more important than being stuck and stagnant. It's a mindset that I've had for many years. And I don't mind getting uncomfortable because I have sat in comfortably low spaces for good stretches, and they did not serve me. I was just existing in life, and we deserve better than that. So yeah, get uncomfortable. There's beautiful things inside the uncomfortable things.
I would definitely agree with that. What have you found is the best way to balance networking with the other things you do in business and in life?
Oh, don't overextend yourself on the networking. um and again, it comes back to the thing of networking in the right places and spaces. So maybe you have 3 or 4 different networking events that you consistently show up at, and you're consistently building relationships inside those spaces. We don't need to be going to 10, 20 different networking events each week or even each month. You'll run yourself ragged and you won't have time for your business. And building blocks in your calendar. So you have networking blocks in your calendar, but you also have blocks in your calendar for certain parts of the business. So your networking blocks, your marketing blocks, your admin blocks, seeing my clients, that's the nice big block. Um, so a balance in your time and putting your energy into the right places. If you're consistently pouring yourself into networking spaces that just aren't giving you any return on that energetic investment, you've got to make some shifts and adjustments, because your energy is going into an empty vessel, really. You're just leaking energy at this stage. So you want to conserve that energy and put it into the right places. Maybe you only need 2 or 3 networking events a month. Maybe you only need 1 or 2 networking events each week. It's what works right for you. But it really does come down to having the right networking spaces is what's going to help you achieve that balance, so that you're not burning yourself out.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that as well. All right. How have collaborations been a part of your networking strategy? When do you ask people for them?
Oh, I love collaborations. And oddly, collaboration is a topic of discussion that I've been having in a couple of different places. The business coaching program that I've just finished off, they discussed collaboration this month. Inside Critical Mass, which is a global collective that I am founder and chair of, we released a video this month about collaboration over competition. So I'm very pro collaboration, especially as a spiritual practitioner. Anyone who works inside the healing arts or the spiritual spaces, collaboration is hugely beneficial. And you've got to have a network. If you're going to collaborate, you need to have a network of people that you can collaborate with. And having the right type of collaborators. So for me, collaboration, first and foremost, is an intuitive choice. I mean, I've got to trust my gut. If anything in the collaboration feels a little bit funky or off from an intuitive perspective, I'm like, I don't think this is the right one for me. So I really do lean into my gut when I choose my collaborators. And I make sure that the person I'm collaborating with, I know who they are. I know what their business ethics looks like. I know exactly what it is that they do and how best they could show up inside this collaboration. It's all very well to, get out there and have all these collaborations, but if you don't fully understand who you're collaborating with or what it is that they do, you can't utilize that collaboration to your best advantage or their best advantage. Because it's about bringing two different sets of strengths together to build something beautiful. So collaboration is hugely important. And it really is. You've got to lean into your network, and that's why you've got to have a network of people. It's the same thing as having a network for referrals. We're not supposed to work with everybody. We're not supposed to know all the modalities and do all the work by ourselves. So we've got to have that referral network where, I don't do Reiki, but I know plenty of Reiki practitioners that I can refer my clients out to. And I'm never scared of like, oh, my clients aren't going to come back to me, because they'll come back to me for the medicine that I'm giving them. So, there is the thing of there is plenty to go around. And collaboration is a beautiful thing. It really is. It's beneficial for both parties involved. And for the people that are getting the benefit of the collaboration. If you've got a healing collaboration going on, I've got one coming up next month in April with a wonderful Reiki master here in the local area. I'm doing readings and she's doing the Reiki component. And the people coming for those are getting this full experience of not only understanding what's going on for them on the different levels, but they're going to get the restorative healing aspect to whatever's going on for them in those levels. So your collaboration it's beneficial for everybody involved.
I really like that because sometimes, especially I've seen in like the healing spaces, like people being reluctant to collaborate. So I'm so glad you talked about that.
Mm. Yeah, they get stuck on the competitive side of things. They feel, that I'm going to lose clients. What if they're better than me? What if they show up more than I do? And you can't have competitiveness inside collaboration. It's two polar opposites coming together to make something really beautiful. Yeah.
I love that. What are your thoughts on tapping into your intuition and how do you use it when networking?
Oh, hugely important. So intuition in choosing which networking events you shouldn't be going to. There I do trust my gut quite a lot. If something about a networking event just doesn't feel correct for me, there's some kind of a misalignment there. And I'm going to lean into that and I'm going to trust that. But if there's one where my gut says, oh yeah, you definitely need to go to that, whether it looks a little bit odd or a little bit strange, I'm going to trust my gut on that. And my gut hasn't let me down in my 42 years of existing on this planet. My gut has never let me down. So, when it comes to picking your networking events and where you're showing up and how you're showing up, intuition is hugely important. Um, I think it's an aspect that many people don't consider inside the networking spaces. They're look at the kind of the black and white of the networking event. Who is it? Who's going to be there? Where is it? What's the time? Not how do I intuitively feel about this networking event. So you gotta bring that component in, because it'll maybe take you to a place and space that wonderful opportunities will open up to you, or it'll save you from going to the wrong places and spaces. So I'm very pro intuition when it comes to networking. And then when you're there, trusting your gut on who to approach in that networking event. I've had a plenty times where I'll scan the room and my gut's like, oh, that person there, you need to go strike up a conversation with them. And sometimes it's because there's business to be done there, and sometimes there's collaboration to be done there, or it's someone that you just needed to connect with. Someone that, a meeting of a kindred soul, if you will. So you use your intuition in picking your events, and you use your intuition when you're at your events to, how do you engage with people? Who do you engage with? Yeah, it's a very, very underrated tool inside the networking spaces, I feel.
Yes, and that's part of what I do is help people use their intuition when networking because I know it is so important and being able to trust that also helps you do it because it's so essential. So,
Absolutely.
any closing remarks or things that you wanted to add?
Oh, don't be scared of the collaborations. Absolutely get out there and collaborate. And networking is it's big and it's scary, but it's so necessary. You know, if you're an entrepreneur of any kind, your business is not going to happen sitting inside your office or sitting inside your home. You know, you've got to put yourself out there. And it's big and it's scary, but there's if you're doing it the right way, you're coming from the right approach, and you've got the right methods in place, the beautiful things will happen. You know, networking, collaborations, and using your intuition inside those things. I mean, I love that that's something that you offer. You know, because people are like, how do I do that? Go chat to Lori. She can help you with that. So I think that's the I think the biggest thing I'd love to leave people with is those networking and collaborations are hugely important as an entrepreneur, and that there's people out there who can help you navigate those spaces if you feel like you don't know what you're doing or how to get started. There's wonderful entrepreneurs and professionals around who can walk that path with you.
Thank you so much.